Hey fellow tennis nerds, welcome to the Babolat Pure Strike racket review. A racket made for players who don't want to go all the way to a more controlled racket, which is a 98 Pure Strike or even lower in terms of power level. They want some power, but they don't want to go all the way to a drive or even an arrow where you have more stiffness inherent in the frame. At least when you look at the paper and the specifications, because the specifications can lie a little bit or mislead you. And in this case, I think they are a little bit misleading with the Pure Strike 100, as the listed specifications on the Tennis Warehouse websites, which you can see on the screen, they are quite low in stiffness, but the racket is a pretty firm racket. It gives you good power. It gives you more spin than you might imagine from a 1620 pattern, a bit similar to the Aero 98 that is advertised and endorsed by Alcaraz and Rune and these guys. That is a racket that you'll see 98, 1620. You want to, in your head, compare it to an Elevate or something pretty low powered, but it actually has quite a lot of power, quite a lot of launch angle. So specifications don't tell you the whole story. This racket kind of slots in between power and control. As I said, it is a competitor to rackets like the Wilson Blade 100, Dunlop CX 400 Tour, Head Speed MP, and a bunch of other rackets in this category. It's becoming kind of this in-betweener category where a lot of players find a good balance between some forgiveness from the 100 square inch head size, but also a little bit more power and spin than a normal control racket, but not going all the way where you feel like you might overhit. So that, in that sense, I think this is a growing category that will keep on expanding its importance, especially among recreational players, but also in the future probably among even more advanced players. Like I said, this is not as controlled as you might think. The Strike is the control line of Babolat, but the most control racket they have is the Strike 97, and that's quite of a different beast than this. That is, with a 97 square inch head, you're not going to get a lot on the ball. This one you get quite a lot on the ball, and it has a pretty high swing weight. The copy I got, you can see the specs here on the Meteor Tune, which is a great device that I use, and it's actually connected to the computer where I can actually transfer the data. So I have a bit of a database on the specs I measure. Cosmetic is very clean. I think that is an upgrade. I think they removed some of the ugly font which was here. Now it looks a little bit more clean, more stylish. Very simple but nice design in my opinion. Suits players who play kind of aggressive from the baseline, who need power and spin but not all the way there. Has a feeling that is pretty Babolat style, a little bit, and very much Strike, you know, and the older Strikes. This is a new model in the lineup, but it carries that heritage. It has that really kind of stiff, crisp, sometimes board-like feel. I'm not saying that in a negative sense necessarily. I'm meaning that it feels very, very solid, very stable. And if you've played a Pure Strike in the past, you know what to expect. Although with the flat fibers, they have improved the comfort a bit. So it's a little bit more dampened, but not so much that you don't feel the ball. I thought it would be more controlled than it is. It's quite powerful, even compared to my CX 400 Tour, the Blade 100, or the Speed MP. I think it's more similar to the Speed MP in a way, because that has a bit of a higher launch than you would expect. You'd think that the 1620 would have a much lower launch angle than the 1619 version of the same racket, but it's actually pretty decently high. So you do get a lot of lift on the ball, and the swing weight was a little bit higher on this copy, so that's where some of the power might come from. Makes it a bit harder as a reviewer to always estimate, like, because I can't remove swing weight unless I start tinkering with the frame or removing material from the frame. So that's a bit tricky. I can go for a thinner gauge poly, which would be something. I've tried as well with the Hyper G Soft 120, for example. But yeah, it's pretty powerful racket. Gives you some control. Has a nice power spin, decent feel. Like, it's not the best feel of the rackets I mentioned. I would say the Blade 100 and the CX 400 Tour has a bit better feel in my opinion. But overall, you get a bit more on this one, and it's rock solid at the net. So if you're playing doubles, for example, it's just block and play, and I think that works pretty well. Big on serves, so it's the more powerful version of these in-betweener frames, like the Speed. The beam width is not very thick, so it moves nicely through the air. Has this kind of boxy feel to it, which is nice when you take back on the one-handed backhand. And overall, it's a very nice frame. I like it quite a lot. It is a bit too powerful for my liking, just going from control frames. So I would prefer a 98 in this case. But I think for most Pure Strike, rec club level players, I think this is the model they would choose. I prefer it over the 1619. I think it has a bit more solid feel and slightly higher swing weight with the denser string pattern and a little bit more control, although it's not going to be like laser-like trajectory on the ball like the Percept 100D or Speed Pro, where you really see the ball just penetrating through the court like that. This one does have a bit more lift, a bit more launch on the ball, so that's good to keep in mind. But overall, pretty positive experience. Not something I'll use in tournaments because of the aforementioned reasons. Like, it's a bit too much for me with the launch and the power. So, and I would have to then string it up at a pretty high tension, maybe 25 kilos or 55 pounds, slightly lower perhaps. And the problem is when you start stringing higher, you're going to have your arm sensitivity is going to increase, because the polyester string at a high tension is going to be tough on the arm. So that would be my main pet peeve personally, but it depends on your style and what you like. And if you like a little bit of a stiffer frame that gives you a bit more and that feels solid on all shots, and I think it's probably the best serving weapon of the rackets I mentioned. So this one you can get like a really nice pop on your serve, which is very helpful. So I would say, like, for a doubles player who primarily play doubles and want a dependable racket that can do decent volleys and a good serve, which are very important strokes, and is stable on returns, I think the Pure Strike 100 1620 should be considered. All these now in between frames, the 100 square inch control, oriented string patterns, Percept 100D, Blade 100, Speed MP, this one, they're all good, but they have their unique feel and unique abilities in terms of launch and so on. So I would definitely urge you to play test, because it depends if you've tried. If you really like the brand and you know what the brand stands for and the line, yeah, I think it's fine. But otherwise, you should definitely need to try it, because this plays very differently from, you know, the Blade or the Percept or the Strike. In terms of feelings, they're all quite different. So I think it's a safer bet to go for something within a brand you already know a little bit. So that would be my recommendation overall, and not to stray too much in between brands, because then with the grip shape and the sizing of the grips, the feeling, this is very much a Strike. A little bit more comfortable than the previous generation of Strikes, but still very much a Strike in terms of feel. You're not gonna feel like huge difference. And if you like that line, why not? And if you maybe play with a Pure Drive but you want less power, why not this one? This could be a great transition racket for you then. Play style could be all the way up to Pro Tour, obviously, but I wouldn't be a beginner with this one. It's pretty hefty, since my swing weight was quite high. So I would be intermediate to advanced to play with this racket. I think the Strike is more tailored to that audience anyway. But maybe you like the cosmetic. There are lighter versions that you can go for if you like the style of the looks and what the Strike means to you. So Pure Strike 100 1620, not my favorite in between racket, but a good one. And for players looking for more power than the other ones, this is the one that they should probably consider the most, because it has more power than the ones I mentioned. So it's a good stick for sure. And let me know in the comments what you think about it. If you need help finding your racket, check out the Tennis Nerd consultation on tennisnerd.net or join patreon.com/tennisnerd to become a member and get unique and exclusive content. That's it for today. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.